So my friend Joe has a chair that doesn't have a back. He ordered it, it didn't come with the back. He tried to get the part, they didn't have it. They gave him a refund, they didn't want to take it back. It's a soft chair that should have a wooden back that has metal brackets on it that fit into a metal bracket like this on both of the arms. I'm not too familiar with this chair, I have never seen it, but we've talked a lot about it, and he drew me a picture, and I think I can make him what he needs. So this is the bracket. It's pretty interesting. It has a taper to it. So this is the top, which is the wide end, about that wide, and then you can see the taper here. There is also sort of a V to either side to keep the other metal bracket in. And the other thing too is there's this little bump here that I think you can see. We'll have to take that into account too. So I made a prototype. I made it out of poplar. It worked pretty well when I made it. It has a similar shape to it. The biggest problem I had was I made it out of poplar. So even though it fit tight when I made it, it was pretty humid in my shop that day, and it shrunk. So as you can see, it doesn't fit tight anymore, and it goes way too far down. So I'm going to hopefully try to fix that by making this again with plywood, and I might do a little trick up here to just make sure that it doesn't go down too far. The other thing was I realized that I needed to cut a groove in the in this side of the piece. I realized that after I cut the taper, so that was pretty much a nightmare to do on the router, and I did not do it very well. So those are the things we're going to improve upon. First we want to rip the board to the right width. The important dimension really is the inside of this. Make sure it's the thick part. It's a little less than 1.5 inches, but I want to go a little bit bigger. You'll find out why later. When I cut the taper, I can account for that. So I'll probably do 1 5/8 inches maybe, just to go a little bit over. So I'll do that cut now. So before I cut any tapers, I want to put a groove right down the middle of this board. I'll use the router table for that. I'll probably make a couple passes, one right down the middle, then a little offset, deeper in the middle and not so deep at the end. Apparently there are some screw heads that might get in the way. Again, haven't seen the rest of this, so I'll just make an estimate. I don't want to go too deep because I only have 4 plies here, so probably only want to go 2 deep at the most. So I'll go do that now. Before I cut the taper in these pieces, I have to cut them to length. The length of this bar is about 7 inches, but I want to put a little stop at the top to keep it from slipping through. So I'm going to cut them to 7.5 inches. Okay, we're getting to the most exciting part of this, which is cutting the taper in the piece. Tapers are interesting. Basically, you obviously want to cut half the taper width, or if you're going to have a 1/2 inch taper, you need to cut a 1/4 inch off of each side. The easiest way I know to do that is to do it on the table saw with something like this, which is a taper jig. So you put, just gotta get a piece of wood. Here we go. So you put a piece of wood here for your first cut, which cuts half your taper, then you flip it around, and you put it here on the second step for your second pass, which will cut half the taper on each side for your full taper. This is just an old jig I have. This is a quarter inch, so a half-inch overall taper. These are half-inch steps. And I made this little tiny one for today. It was even a little too small, so I had to put some foil tape here to bump it out a little bit. But this is the taper jig that I'll use today. And hopefully we'll get the taper we need. As you can see, that's a kind of tricky cut. Just go slow, be careful, make sure that you're on here and keep your fingers way away from the blade, obviously. The other thing to keep in mind is once you bring it through and take it out, you need to remember which side you already cut the taper on. If you do it again on the same side, you'll have essentially a square edge and then all the taper on one side. So it's actually really hard to see, it's such a small taper. I think I had success, so we will see. I'm changing now to a V-groove cutting blade. It's not perfect, but it should take off this corner here. So I'm going to take a pass at basically the full height of this V-groove bit on both of these sides, and then I'll do a much shallower cut over here. Maybe not much shallower, maybe half the depth. I'm going to try to stop early, so I'm not going to cut all. I'm going to cut the height of this, and then once I get up to here, I want to remove the bit so that I get a stop right on the top. This isn't going to be perfect. I expect I'm going to have to clean it up, but I think this is the way to go. So since I want my big cut to be on this side, that's where this bump is. It'll be there and there that I want these larger cuts done with. And I only want it cut on the thinner side, on the thinner portion of this. So what I've done is I've marked here and here places to stop cutting or start, whatever the case might be. It's better to use stop blocks, but I think this will work for me. So I want to start on the thinner side and cut along till I get to this mark, and then I want to pull that out there, and then flip it around and start over here, put the end on that mark, plunge cut in, and then route across, and I should get it's not quite a round over, but I should take this edge off here and here, but leave this area here, which should help after the stop. So we'll see how this goes. Some bits are designed to plunge and others are not. Apparently this is not designed to plunge. It didn't go so well. I had to make a couple passes. This is kind of funky plywood, but anyway, I think, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it did what I wanted to do, where I have this cut off all the way up till this portion, and then I have a stop there. So hopefully, if I did my marks right, that should be just about right. So I'm going to do the other side in a similar way, so it should slide in here and then stop right there. I've dropped the router down, but I'm about to do the same thing on the other side. So they're starting to fit. The profile's right. They start to go in, but it's a little tight, so probably have to do some fine-tuning. Well, that was more cleanup than I expected or hoped, but it's pretty close now. I think I'll leave it at that in case it does shrink any bit. That's the problem with these taper fit pieces, is that if they're off by a small fraction of an inch in this direction, it can translate to a big difference up and down. But anyway, on to the next one. I want to drill some holes for where I'm going to screw in to the back of the chair, and I want to countersink them down so that they're out of the way of this channel. I don't have a real countersink bit, so I'm just going to use a Forstner bit. Go in not too deep, about as much as the drywall screw head, and then drill through with a regular bit, just to pre-drill the hole. Drilled and countersinked. Sunk, countersunk. So now we get into the less interesting part. This is the back of the chair. This is the sketch that Joe gave me. It's 1 1/8 inches thick. I think I'm probably just going to make it 1 inch. This is the height, also probably not too important, but I'll make it 23 as he specifies. And the width being 20.5 inches. I had originally intended to make this a little bit narrower, and then maybe put some spacers behind. These are the pieces that I've made already. These wooden pieces to go into the metal bracket on the side. I was thinking about maybe putting some spacers to get the exact width, but you know, I think this joins 2 arms. There should be a good amount of play. So I'm gonna think a little bit, but I think I'm gonna stick to 20.5 inches. So I've got to go cut some plywood now. Okay, it's day 2. This is all dried up. I looked at the other side to see if the screws were poking through at all, because it's a 1 inch thick board and I used 1 inch screws. A couple of them poked up just a little bit, just the very tips, so I hammered them down and now they're nice and they're flush. At least you can't really feel them. They're not sharp anyway. Alright, next thing I need to do, when I glued up the pieces, they're not exactly lined up, so I put the flush trim bit in the router table and I'll just clean it up a little bit. So from Joe's picture, he says that the bracket starts 14.25 inches down from the top, and the bracket's 7 inches. If you remember, our piece is a little bit bigger than the bracket, so he said 14.25. So we probably have to come down 13 3/4 to make up for about this 1/2 inch difference. So I'm going to make a mark. So let's see. 14 and a quarter. Oops. Hands are full. 14 and a quarter is right here. This is how I'll do it. I'll put the bracket here, 14 and a quarter, draw a line at the bottom of the bracket, and then that's where the bottom of this piece needs to go now. And I can draw a line right at the top, and I can know exactly where this needs to be. Alright, so I'm ready to screw this into place. I'm also going to glue it. I'm a little worried about torque. If somebody has their back way up here, it could put a lot of strain on this, which is made to be made out of metal and it's made out of wood, so I'm going to glue it and screw it. Just like that. Spread out the glue. Get glue all over my workbench. I'm going to put two 1-inch nails in the middle, and then much bigger nails, probably maybe 3-inch on the outside to deal with that torque. These are essentially just to hold it into place. I want to center it on the board too. It's another thing I want to look at. I want to be careful that I don't crack that by screwing it in too hard. I would have to redo it. Might tighten them by hand. So here's a 3-inch screw. That should be plenty strong. Again, hope I don't split anything by driving this in. I could have pre-drilled, that's for sure, but that seemed to go pretty well. Okay, that's good. I'm going to tighten those by hand, if I can. That's pretty tight. That way you can stop if you just hear it cracking or you think there's any issues. That's pretty good. Clean up that. Glue. Okay, we're getting to the home stretch. I just have to do the other side. Okay, I think it's done. If I didn't explain it well before, these are the two pieces that will fit into the metal brackets on the arms of the chair, like that, and then this is the back of the chair, and hopefully there's something nice and fabricy that goes over it so you don't have to look at this thing. But that's it hopefully on my side, so I'll have to see how it fits in the chair.